What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 2 of The Race here with Kingston Sprint. And today, we're back, episode 2. I want to firstly kind of start off this episode by just saying a massive thank you to you guys for your support on the opening episode of this series. With it being MLS being a little bit different, I didn't know how it was going to go down, but well, at least for the most part, people seem to be really excited about this save, which is fantastic. And I've even seen a fair few people kind of saying, oh, I'm going to try now an MLS save of my own, and I definitely encourage you to try it because, as I said, kind of in episode 1, it is different. So over the first kind of few episodes in this series, I want to go through various different concepts and just little intricacies about playing in America. So today I thought we'd start off by talking about the squad registration rules, because it is an area that is fairly unique in America. I kind of touched upon it briefly before, but as you can see here, there's quite a few different little stipulations which we're going to go through here. So the first thing worth noting is that your maximum squad size is 28 players. That is the most players you can have in your team. Any players above that number of 28 can't be registered, or rather you'll have to leave one player out. And any players that are outside of that kind of 28-man squad go on to what's called the waivers, which is essentially an option whereby any other team in the league can pick up that player for a free transfer. So you do have to kind of manage how many players you've got in your team. You don't want to, get too big or a bloated a squad, because otherwise you end up surrendering some of your, talent that's perhaps on the fringes of the squad. Of course, this also brings up interesting kind of conundrums when it comes to kind of trying to bed in young players into your squad without kind of, getting the squad too big and potentially having to surrender one of your hot young prospects. Anyway, the other things to go through here, designated players. I touched upon this briefly before, as Michael Carrick is currently our only designated player. A designated player is essentially a kind of player whereby you can offer them whatever wages you can afford as a club. And their salary cap impact is limited at £463,000. Yeah, you can see here, £463,000. So when it comes to the wage cap, essentially at every club you have your club's wage budget, what they can afford to offer. But then MLS itself, the league, has a self-imposed wage limit, which if we look on the registration screen here, you can see our current kind of cap impact is £3.65 million, dollars a year. And you can see the maximum squad salary that we can have, the wage cap, is $3.85 million a year. And basically you have to ensure your wages come in below that amount. Anyway, other things we have here, maximum of 6 international players is my current limit. I believe you start off with a limit of 7. In 8, I think is the right number. But you do have the option to trade these international slots away. So we can have a maximum of 6 international players. Now, because we are a Jamaican club, I have set it up so that Jamaican players don't count towards this international limit. Otherwise, as you can imagine, that would be a little bit of a problem. So you can see at the moment we only have 2 international players in our side. Anyway, the next thing we have is our 8 off-budget player limit. These are essentially players who they don't count towards the salary cap. In our case here, the players that don't count towards the salary cap are our younger players. We have a fair few of them here. These are players who we picked up in the Super Draft earlier on in the year. And to explain the Super Draft briefly, essentially all the best hot kind of young American prospects who have gone to college go into a big kind of draft that happens at the start of every season. And, it's a typical draft system whereby the lower in the league you finish, the earlier you get a pick the following year. And, if you don't know about the drafts and how they work, essentially there's a few different ones which we'll kind of go through over the next kind of few episodes, I imagine, here in MLS. And basically, the lower you finish, the earlier you get a pick in each round. And each round of the draft, it goes in the exact same order. But you as a club have the ability to trade your draft picks away and where you kind of sit in the Super Draft. Anyway, the next thing we have is our maximum of 6 reserve players. These are essentially players who have to have kind of the minimum wage. So if we look at our players here, you can see the players indicated with res here are on reserve contracts. What this essentially means is that they are kind of, on bare minimum contracts. They are considered kind of the backup of all backups. And that is why they don't impact, of course, our salary cap. Anyway, the next thing we have here is a maximum of 25 non-Canadian players. Now, obviously, this says valid for Canadian-based clubs only. As we are in Jamaica, this also means non-Jamaican players. So essentially, we can have a maximum of 25 players who aren't of Jamaican nationality. As you can see, we are nowhere near that limit at the moment. In fact, there are only really 9 players in our club that aren't of Jamaican heritage, which is obviously very useful indeed. Anyway, you can see here the maximum squad salary. I already talked about this, but this is essentially the yearly limit imposed by the league. And the last thing we have here is a minimum squad size. So I appreciate quite a lot of detail to explain there, but I do feel like it's important to kind of explain some of this stuff as we go through. It does mean when you're building a squad, obviously, you have to strike a right balance. You can't just go crazy getting the best players you possibly can, because you won't be able to afford all their wages and come in under the salary limit. And if you're over the salary limit with all the players you brought in order to get under that limit, the chances are you are going to have to surrender and, waive one of your best young prospects. Anyway, since the last episode, we did actually do a trade, and it was for this guy, Kamar Lawrence, a very good left back. We traded with New York Red Bulls for him. Wasn't cheap in terms of what we offered up for him, but you can see if we look at it, we actually gave up 2 super draft picks, which, as I mentioned, are our picks kind of for the young hot prospects. We also traded away an international slot for 2 years. The thinking behind this being is at the moment, really, we're not coming anywhere near our limits of international slots, and so I don't need these at the moment, so it's probably worth using as a bartering tool. So we have surrendered one of our kind of 8 international slots to New York for Kamar Lawrence, and we also surrendered $450,000 in general allocation money. Essentially, general allocation money is money provided by the league that you can use to trade with other MLS clubs, which is what we've done here. You can see earlier on in the preseason, Houston actually bought one of our international slots off us for $500,000 in general allocation money. As I mentioned, the international slots, at least at the moment, I don't need them so much, and over the next few years, I don't think we're going to be coming close to hitting that international kind of squad limit that we have of 6. Of course, in 2 years' time, this does mean that we will have our 2 international slots returned, so we will have that limit rise up to 8. The other trade we did here, actually, I'll talk about it briefly, was for Scott Coldwell. He's a good little centre mid, actually a player I was looking at one point. If we look here in the re-entry draft, Real Salt Lake unfortunately got him, but we managed to get what I think is a pretty good trade deal done, whereby we gave up a 4th round pick in the super draft. Now, it's worth noting, unlike, say, hockey, for example, or the NFL, obviously, where if you know anything about American sports, the draft picks are rated really highly. In MLS, it's slightly different because every club has academies, and well, speaking of academies, you can see here we have the Kingston Sprint Academy. Essentially, this is where our regens will appear. As opposed to having a youth team, all the MLS clubs essentially have a sister club which operates completely independently, but we have the right of the players. So as you can see here, Tim Flores, the best top prospect at the moment, looks like he could be a pretty good little centre-back, the 17-year-old. Definitely a player to keep an eye out on. As a part of this, unfortunately, with the kind of custom database, I had to set up a separate academy. I couldn't base this one in Jamaica. So as a result, I've set up a second academy that actually competes in the Jamaican Football League, which is kind of interesting. They currently sit in the 2nd tier. This club obviously operates slightly differently to the traditional kind of MLS academy in the sense that it is a fully fledged club. But in the same way, as you can see here, there are a number of regens that appear of Jamaican nationality, and it does mean that we should have a steady flow of, hopefully, talented Jamaican players entering our club, and if they are going to move, the chances are that they will be signed by other clubs based in Jamaica, so again, kind of helping Jamaican football as a whole kind of through this process. And with this club, worth noting, they do have a squad limit kind of imposed that means that players over the age of, I think it's 24, 23, can't actually play in the league for them. So it's very much a club dedicated to developing talent, and a team that over the next few years you might expect us to get a few useful, certainly Jamaican players from. And we have already signed one player from them, actually, who, if we take a look at here, is this guy, Corey Binns. I believe Jamaican Regen Day is around March time. I know for America, I believe it's kind of right at the end of December, at the end of every season, the academies get their new batch of players. But this guy, Corey Binns, really good potential, 16 years old. Decided to snap him up. Worth noting, obviously, he does count towards our wage cap, but we had a little bit of room to bring him in, so it kind of was a logical thing to do. And hopefully, obviously, he can turn into a good little player for us. Unfortunately, I can't actually move him to our affiliates. If I just go on another player like Jermaine Anderson, I can move him to kind of the Sprint Academy, for example. So what I'm thinking with Corey Binns is I might end up kind of loaning him back either to the Kingston Sprint Academy in Jamaica, or alternatively the one in America, which I think will have slightly better youth facilities. Anyway, speaking of youth facilities, one last thing we'll just kind of touch on before getting into the results since the last episode here. You can see the club as a whole. These are all our different kind of facilities. I kind of put them in line with the likes of Toronto. That was kind of what I used as a benchmark. Obviously, based in Jamaica. We own the Independence Park Stadium, which, if you don't know, is kind of the national athletic stadium in Jamaica. And, well, that is the club right now. Anyway, I apologise if that was a little bit too rambly. I know people hate it when I go on and on, but with this being MLS, I feel like it's important to kind of talk about all the various things which are kind of unique to this save that people might not necessarily have a firm grasp on. Anyway, you can see here we've played 8 games since the last episode. A bit of a mixed bag, really. We had a fantastic start with 3 wins and 3 draws, but 2 defeats in our last 2 games away from home in Canada means that playing Columbus today, who currently sit 9th, it's going to be a big game for us. We took on Montreal Impact in the first of these games. A 2-2 result there. Michael Carrick missed a penalty. I don't want to blame you, Michael, but I am. You'll see here he has had a massive drop-off as well. Unfortunately, if we look at his injuries, he's been out with a back strain, and that has hit him hard. Obviously, 35 years old, Michael Carrick. Worth noting, the contract he's signed with the club is only a 1-year deal. So, you know, we're not tied to him long-term. I thought he'd be a very good player for at least this season. But hopefully, you know, he's not going to be kind of burdened with a load of injuries. Otherwise, that might not necessarily be the case. Anyway, 2 results to follow this. A 4-3 win against the LA Galaxy. A bit of a roller coaster of emotions, but we got there in the end. You can see here Clennon getting a goal, Fabian McCarthy and Ricardo Morris there for us. The next game we had against New York, we won 4-1. Jason Johnson picking up a hat-trick. Great to see him doing well. And also Otti doing well. A player who is pretty good, 24 years old, very talented when it comes to his pace. Technically, definitely lacking, but he's done okay, and we're going to be calling on him a fair bit because, unfortunately for us, Clennon has suffered a long-term injury. Anyway, perhaps a little bit of a cause for concern. In our last 5 games, we failed to score in 3 matches. The first game against Philadelphia here, 0-0, not a lot to speak of really. Neither team did that well. It was the game that Michael Carrick picked up his injury in. We then took on Chicago. Again, underwhelming, you know, not to get a goal, perhaps a cause for concern. I was pretty happy, of course, when we bounced back. You can see here against New England, and we won 3-1 in the end. Perhaps the result was a little bit more comfortable than it perhaps looks here. You know, we were on top for large spells of the game. In the end, the Jason Johnson goal late on sealed us the win. However, as I mentioned, the last 2 games, a 5-3 defeat against Vancouver, a game that we were 2-0 up in, and well, we conceded 5 goals in the space of about 25 minutes across kind of both halves. Less than ideal, certainly. Anyway, the next game we played against Montreal Impact, we were FM'd. That's what I'm going to use as my excuse. They had 2 shots on target. We had a lot more, but well, the finishing was lacking, and that is, again, a little bit of a cause for concern, perhaps. So anyway, we take on today Columbus Crew. We're going to be trying to bounce back. You can see at the moment in MLS, we currently sit 3rd in our conference, which is, of course, the Eastern Conference. The board expectation this year is to reach the wildcard spots, which is a top 6, I believe. You can see here in the overall standings, our conference is looking like the stronger of the 2 conferences, with the only 2 teams ahead of us in the MLS Supporters Shield, which is kind of the combined table of the East and Western Conference, seeing the top 3 sides all being teams in our conference. So could be fairly competitive this year. Anyway, let's get into today's game. It's a big match for us against Columbus. In terms of the team, we're going to be sticking with the 4-3-1-2. In terms of new players coming into the side who weren't featuring last time, I mentioned Otti. Daniel Johnson also going to be playing for us, a big earner at the club, a very big kind of talent as well, the 24-year-old who we got from Preston, kind of when we first established the club, was injured for the first game of the season. Hopefully he can have a good performance here. Coldwell comes into the side. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, Michael Carrick still struggling with that back strain. You can see, where is he? He's struggling. I mean, his condition, match fitness, he's just not ready for today's game, unfortunately. Elsewhere, Lawrence going to be playing. Big game for him, you know, live com debut. Hopefully he can give a performance to remember. But elsewhere, it's kind of the usual suspects. Williams is going to play centre-back. He started the last kind of episode that you guys saw. That, of course, being because Jermaine Taylor, who I consider our best centre-back out of kind of Taylor and Williams, is suspended. He was injured for the first game, suspended for this game. One day you will see him in action. But yeah, elsewhere, we're looking fairly good indeed. It's worth noting that with these average ratings and scoring records, it does also encompass the Caribbean Club Championship, which we kind of participate in as kind of really part of our pre-season. It's going to be kind of unique, I guess, with us here at Kingston Sprint, that, well, the MLS season kind of runs between March and, well, I think it's kind of early December if you make it all the way, but certainly kind of into October and November. But we are also going to have the Jamaican FA Cup, which kind of goes on late on in the calendar year. And, well, in pre-season, between kind of January and March, we have the Caribbean Club Championship. So it does mean that we are involved in competitions pretty much all year round. There isn't really going to be time for friendlies. Anyway, Kamar Lawrence on his debut whips it in. Clark makes the stop there. For a second, I believed he was going to have an immediate impact, Kamar Lawrence, but unfortunately for us, Clark collects. Big ball in deep. Apara wins it. Can Danny Johnson do well? We've got Danny Johnson and Jermaine Johnson. I kind of want to call them JJ and DJ, but I feel like that might get complicated. Should I do it? I think it would be probably in my benefit rather than calling them both Johnson. But anyway, we'll see what we can do here. Coldwell, DJ, he goes out left. Kamar Lawrence whips it in, and Otti. Well, Otti's been a little bit underwhelming for us, but he's got a goal there. A player who, I said, he's all about his kind of physicals and his mentals. He doesn't have a lot of technique. Well, he showed technique there and good technicals with that finish. First shot on target for us this game. First goal, Kamar Lawrence, the new left-back, traded from New York Red Bulls. A big trade as well. That allocation money I gave up for him was, definitely questionable. But it is kind of part of my philosophy here at the Kingston Sprint kind of club that I want to kind of harvest and kind of really develop Jamaican kind of talent and make that a core philosophy, I guess, of our club, as well as, obviously bringing in the likes of Michael Carrick and certainly some talented American players like Apara. I want to make sure that kind of we have that Jamaican core. And it's also worth noting, actually, with Kamar Lawrence, the left-back, he is born in Kingston. So again, another home kind of grown player literally was born in the city that the club's based in, which is obviously fantastic for us. Anyway, mistake here. Otti going to kind of capitalise on that. Lays it inside to Johnson. Morris with the efforts, powered away wide, and a fool going to get the ball clear. But, well, at the moment, we are kind of just unleashing a barrage of shots at the Columbus goal, and there's not been a lot of return here. Quick free kick. It's into Otti. It's a tap-in. This time the right-back Fisher with the assist, and I'm getting flashbacks to FM16 with these full-back kind of assists. This kind of quick free kick really caught them out. O'Neill Fisher pulls it in. The centre-backs, I don't know where they are. They're on holiday. Otti, he slots it away. He is loving it. He's on for a hat-trick. Could we get back-to-back hat-tricks in live commentaries? I mentioned Clennon's injury earlier. Otti's kind of come into the side as a big player for us. And, well, you couldn't ask for more, although we've given the ball away here in a little bit of a precarious situation. But Kamar Lawrence, wow, what a stop that was by him. And now DJ knocked back, but Clark clears it. Kamar Lawrence has just been in every single highlight, it feels so far. This time, though, he's given the ball away, and we could be in trouble here. Higuain to a full. Options down the line, goes inside. Apara deals with it, but it's not out of danger yet. We need to deal with this. Finley, Lawrence, lovely clearance. Otti, you've got pace. Gives it to Jermaine Johnson. Anderson, the club captain, runs forward. Clark pars it away. And, well, I talked about last episode wanting kind of Jermaine Anderson to be our Steven Gerrard or Frank Lampard, that kind of box-to-box midfielder who's just kind of all-rounded, but a natural leader as well. And, well, Apara, you're meant to be one of the leaders in the centre of the defence, and you've just given away a penalty. Columbus Crew with a gift of a chance to get back into this. This will be their first shot on goal. It's going to be from the spot. Higuain steps up. Keeper goes the right way, but unfortunately Andre Blake couldn't quite kind of parry it round the post. And, well, Columbus Crew, they've been underwhelming early on in this game. But they do find themselves back in it. The keeper, he probably should have done better as well. The ball slotted away nicely. And, well, we need to try and bounce back now. We've been dominant from open play, but if we're going to make mistakes like that at the back, it could cost us. And, well, they're on the attack again here. We've not been great in our last few games. We've struggled to get goals. We've got them today, but, well, we're struggling to defend, it would seem. As Columbus Crew, they're coming wide here with Finley. Now Charney. Jermaine Anderson, though, fantastic crunching tackle by him. And now Danny Johnson going to thread it through Otti. He has pace. Can he put in a ball of quality? He can. And, well, Jason Johnson, JJ, he scores again. He scored so many in the Caribbean Club Championship. And I believe that takes his MLS tally after 10 games this season up to 7 goals. So he is our goal-scoring machine right now. A player who I think we signed from San Antonio, so a club who are based in America outside of MLS. And, well, he's showing MLS pedigree, at least at the moment. Otti having a game of his life as well at the moment. Who is Andre Clennon? Don't know who you're talking about. We don't need him. We're 3-1 up. We're loving it. What a performance that is in the first half. Very happy with that. I was kind of, a little bit concerned coming into this game. We'd lost 2 on the bounce, both away from home. We were going into a home game against Columbus, who have had a very good start to the season. And, I don't want to say our fixtures have been kind to us, but really we've not played kind of a top 4 side in the league yet. And so I thought this might be a bit of a sterner test, but, well, we're rising to the occasion right now as Morris tries to thread it wide. Otti, deflected shot, trying to get that hat-trick. Unfortunately, goes straight into the hands of Clark. But, well, it would seem early on, at least in this second half, it's kind of continuing very much like the first. We're on top, although Shani bringing the ball forward here, inside to Higuain. We need to stay switched on. Francis to trap. I'm a little bit concerned about them penetrating us through the middle. And, well, Andre Blake, what a stop by him. People in the comments were telling me that he's actually been a very good goalkeeper in real life last year in MLS. Of course, the 2016 season in FM is simulated, so we don't kind of get that Andre Blake, but I believe he got goalkeeper of the year in real life last season. And, well, with a save like that, maybe he's going to get it again this year, because that was fantastic. An hour gone here. Do I want to make a change? I think we might take off Ricardo Morris. He's a good player, the 25-year-old. A player we signed, of course, from the domestic kind of Jamaican leagues. And I think I'm going to bring on in his place this guy, Harris, who's a very good player too, 23 years old. You know, quite a bit of a backup player in a lot of kind of respects. But he's 23. He's played a fair few times for Jamaica at international level, despite his tender age. And, well, he's a good player when it comes to his creativity and flair. And I feel like that's what we maybe need a little bit more off the likes of Jermaine Johnson and Alan Otti. So we'll make those changes there. O'Neill Fisher on a booking is a little bit concerning. I think we can play it safe here. So I'm actually going to move Decoy Williams to right back, which is an interesting position for him to play because he's not got that greater a pace and he's not amazing going forward. But then at left centre-back, we can bring in Fabian McCarthy. I don't think a player I've talked about too much. Exceptional mentals, this 26-year-old. Not necessarily the best technicals, but he's got well-rounded physicals as well. Can play centre-mid, but he can also play left-back and centre-back, and he's left-footed. So that's where we're going to play him here. He kind of slots in quite nicely as a good kind of versatile substitute option, kind of defensively. And, well, we're going to make a double change there just to play things safe. I don't want to go a man down. That's what happened last game. Who was it who got sent off now? I can't even remember. But yeah, I'm still learning the squad myself, I guess you could say. But yeah, we're gonna play it safe here. Although maybe this isn't safe. Murham, he's through. Can Andre Blake make a save? He doesn't need to. Not the greatest effort there by the Columbus striker. Would have probably backed him to at least hit the target. But, well, we've been let off the hook here. I'm going to make one last change. Daniel Johnson struggling a little bit for fitness. We're going to bring in Jorginho James, who is a good little kind of backup centre mid option. Just bring him on for the last 2 minutes. Give him a little bit of game time because he is a player who expects to be playing frequently. But, well, after an explosive start to the game, I think it would be fair to say, with kind of 3 or 4 goals early on, it really has fizzled out. But, well, we get the 3 points, which is what matters. And, well, Alan Otti, a player who, 10 finishing, 9 composure, 10 off the ball. Not necessarily the greatest player going forward. He played very well today, and a goal or 2, actually, and an assist as well. So, great performance by him. As I mentioned, only really in the side because of an injury to Andre Clennon, which if we look at here, he's out with a torn groin muscle for 5 to 7 weeks. That is a little bit of a cause for concern for me because if we look at our club here, or rather actually the team report's probably the best place to do this, our squad depth in the striker department is a little bit limited. Clennon's out injured. We have Otti and Jason Johnson. Behind them though, we only really have Craig Farley as a striker option, a player who, if you look here, we picked up in the Super Draft. He looks like a fairly good striker to me, certainly, great finishing, great composure, good off the ball. Physicals perhaps could be a little bit better, but he's got kind of very good strength. Not the best in the air though, unfortunately. I feel like if you're going to have a striker with good kind of strength, you either want them to be fast, which he isn't exactly, or be very good in the air, but I don't know, strength you can't do a whole lot with. But, well, behind those options, our only other striker option, quite questionably, is Jorginho James here, who I think it's fair to say not really cut out to be a striker if we're being 100% honest. So not really a player I want to call upon too much. So we are going to have to be a little bit wary. My backup plan, I guess, if we do get another striker injury, would be to perhaps drop one of our strikers to be a centre attacking midfielder and play kind of a bit of an arrow shape, with a 4-3-2-1 as opposed to the 1-2 up top. But you know what, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Anyway, in terms of when we'll be back, I think we may do the game against Toronto. That's going to be a big game for us. It is at home against the Canadian side. They're currently flying very strong in our conference. And you can see here, they're 1 point behind us, but they have played 2 games less. So the chances are they are going to leapfrog us kind of in the coming games. But anyway, guys, that is going to wrap up everything from me today. Hopefully you did enjoy. Let me know what you'd like to see me talk about kind of with regards to MLS next time. I apologise perhaps for the slightly rambly start, but I do, as I said earlier, feel it's important to kind of introduce people who have no knowledge whatsoever to the registration rules, the fact you have this kind of salary cap limit, the fact that any players who go above that limit, you have to kind of waver and give up and essentially give to another team in the division. because, well, if you didn't know any of those things, it would be a quite foreign concept, I imagine. But anyway, that is all from me. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if I said anything wrong, if I should try and sign any more players. I did look at a very young right-back from Portland, I think it was, who was Jamaican, who a few people mentioned kind of last episode as a player to look into. This guy, Alvas Powell. Can't get a deal done for him, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame, but well, we'll try and deal with it regardless. We have a pretty good kind of well-balanced squad actually at the moment, and well, we come in under kind of the salary limit as well, which is always good. But no, that is all from me, guys. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time, and yeah, that is going to be all from me. It is me, Jack. I will talk to you guys in a bit, and well, I am out. And you jerk it out.